The Rural Organizational Support Pilot started working with local structures from 32 villages in Mapela near Mokopane in Limpopo province earlier this year. In this clip we report on what has happened to date, and we explore possible ways forward to support activists at Mapela as part of an ongoing learning and support program. In June 2015, researchers from the Mining and Trust Project at the Center for Law and Society were invited to meet with activists at Mapela. They were in the process of putting together a committee representative of the 32 villages in the area. The CLS researchers suggested that Mapela could be a possible pilot site for the program. This pilot, which is funded by the Bertha Foundation, aims to learn from practice on the ground. It seeks to find ways to strengthen democratic organization and support rural citizens. At a following meeting in July, researchers from CLS and members of the Rural Organizational Support Project team from the Alliance for Rural Democracy and Puhlisani met with the Mapela structures. This meeting explained the work of CLS and ARD and provided background information on the program. Mapela residents at the meeting voiced a number of long-standing concerns about the roles of the mining company and the traditional council in the area. Their concerns included the lack of accountability of the chief and the traditional council. For a long time, people reported that they had demanded answers about the use of funds and the flows of royalties generated from mining, but had not received a satisfactory response. They were also unhappy about what they described as the persistent absence of the chief. Different speakers highlighted a range of social and environmental problems linked to mining. They spoke about poverty and widespread youth unemployment in the area, which they described as a ticking bomb. They also raised issues concerning the health impacts of mining and the effects of blasting. They spoke about long-standing grievances relating to past relocations of villages without adequate compensation. They reported that the mine had dug up family graves and in the process had deeply disrespected people's spiritual values and heritage. Plans to close a local secondary school, which had been built with the funds and labour of residents from the surrounding villages, was also a hot issue. From these discussions, it was clear that there were high levels of anger and accumulated frustration, which could soon boil over. People at the meeting gave the go-ahead for the Rural Organizational Support Program, which had been introduced by Puhlisani. It was agreed that follow-up visits would take place, where the project team would work with local activists to research and better understand local issues and support needs. The team began working to compile a profile of Mapela and its history, drawing on earlier reports and research. The team developed interview guides and conducted interviews with the top 15 members of the Mapela committee. However, this process was interrupted when, on the 1st of September, widespread protests were triggered in the Mapela area. This resulted in the Mapela Tribal Authority offices being burnt to the ground. Other buildings and vehicles were also burnt. Roads were blockaded. Protesters clashed with police, who made scores of arrests over a period of several days. During this period, CLS researchers monitored the protests and assisted where possible to ensure that those arrested could obtain legal representation. In the national media, a range of analytic pieces began to appear to start to examine what lay behind this upwelling of protest. On the 10th of September, the then Minister of Minerals intervened in the area with the support of the South African Human Rights Commission. This intervention resulted in a signed agreement on a roadmap. The roadmap sought to set out an agenda to resolve the dispute between Anglo Platinum and the community of Mapela. According to the agreement, a task team would be made up of representatives from all the affected villages, and a terms of reference to agree its mandate would be drawn up at a subsequent meeting. The roadmap document also identified a range of burning issues which the task team needed to address. These included the reopening of the Sarita Rita school and agreement on blasting schedules in the school vicinity. The agenda also included an undertaking to revisit agreements between Anglo and the relocated villages, which would re-examine the 1993 lease agreement which had been entered into with the traditional authority. It also identified a number of other legacy issues to be addressed. Because the focus of the task team is on resolving local community disputes with Anglo Platinum, there are a number of issues relating to the role of the chief and the traditional council which are not directly addressed. However, these issues are likely to surface as part of the discussion around the original lease agreement. So, what happens next? The Rural Organizational Support Pilot plans to continue to work with the Mapela Committee and with the local village representatives. We will identify local volunteers through a transparent process together with the local committee. These volunteers will assist in carrying out a rapid research process to help document village histories and identify priority issues on the ground. In the process, we plan to support the development of local research skills. Village histories and village issues will be documented and compiled in a report, which will be presented at the first joint planning and learning session, which will draw representatives from the various villages together. This session will examine how the priorities of different local villages align with the key issues on the task team agenda. It will discuss how to make best use of the negotiating space opened up by the protest action. It will identify priority issues and key organizational support needs to help guide the content of future support and learning. The session should help us develop a plan which will maximize support for local structures in order to defend and advance the rights of local people. Overall, we regard the creation of a negotiating space as an important opportunity. The learning program aims to strengthen the Mapela negotiating agenda while helping to build local, democratic and accountable forms of popular organization, which will raise rural citizens' voices in order to bring positive change.